welcome back to the Employee Cycle Podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Marable, CEO of Employee Cycle. And you know us, we're that HR analytics dashboard helping all you HR and people leaders out there get rid of the manual, tedious, and time-consuming process called HR reporting. That's right. We know you want a data-driven story to understand and help fix problems around turnover, retention, diversity, headcount, compensation, recruiting. And we know that your process typically today is pulling manual spreadsheets from your HRIS and ATS and other systems, trying to understand this data, and you're pulling your hair out, sitting there staring at your computer thinking there has to be a better and easier way. Well, look no further. That's why we created Employee Cycle, an HR dashboard with pre-built integration connectors to the most popular HR systems out there. So you can point and click. In under 15 minutes, you can get an out-of-the-box dashboard to view, share, and track and analyze all of your HR and people data in one place. Go to employeecycle.com, check us out. We'd love to give you a demo and explore how we can help you automate your HR reporting and analytics process. But that's enough about me and our company, because today we have an awesome guest. So please help me welcome to the show, Sree Chellappa. He's the CEO and co-founder of Engagingly, and today we're discussing how will AI impact HR and the workforce. Sree, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you.
Sree, welcome!
All right. Thank you. Really appreciate it. It's a pretty hot topic, and I'm super excited to talk about it.
Awesome. We're super excited as well. But before we kick off with the topic, Sree, we always have to start off with the same question, which is, how did you end up working in the wonderful world of HR?
I came from a background of technology consulting services previously, and I did a startup there, which grew exponentially. We had a great exit, but part of the experience I had was managing a lot of people along the way and growing teams and getting people aligned and things of this nature. But also part of my role was working with clients, and I had a firsthand observation of how people were engaged or disengaged at my client organizations as well. A lot of them were big Fortune 1000 type of companies. And Engagedly was an idea that my business partner had come up with to drive employee engagement across workforce about 8 years ago or so. And I liked the idea because I realized, there was a lot of disengagement. There were a lot of disconnect between expectations and reality at workforce. People are not getting recognized. People are not getting feeling connected at work. So I thought this was a great idea to implement, and we started on that journey about 8 years ago, and here we are, which is a full suite talent management platform now. So I didn't technically come from an HR background, but understanding how people work and what makes them tick really helped me shape this platform.
Awesome. And we always love a great origin story and how people got into this space. Really appreciate that. So Sree, today we're talking about how will AI impact HR and the workforce. Everybody's talking about AI. Some people are thinking that AI will make the world a better place. Some people think that AI will take us all over and turn us into, a keyboard, or turn us all into toys. Some people think that AI will do something totally in between on the spectrum. So I would first like to ask you, what is your overall thought and feeling about AI in general? This would be a great place to start.
Yeah, so I've been studying about AI, or at least reading about it, and obviously we see a lot of movies and science fiction and whatnot and books on AI, as from years ago. I will say, though, the AI had a lot of promise for a long time, but when ChatGPT came out about 6 months ago or so, publicly available, we saw behind the curtain what really is possible. And that really opened up floodgates on what is really possible for everyone, not just for Google, Microsoft, and Apple, and the likes of those. And I think that really got me interested on the applications of AI. Now, going back to your question, I have been immersing myself in this space for the last 2 or 3 months very heavily. A day doesn't go by where I don't see an article or read or see a video, or actually listen to podcasts where developers from leading companies and other places are talking about the possibilities. And I think the potential of AI to do good is immensely huge, but the potential to do harm is also a real possibility. So part of me is concerned. I wouldn't hide that, to be honest, given what is possible. Now, I come from an engineering background myself, and as an engineer, I can see the possibilities on how it can go rogue with a rogue actor in there. Now, coming back to where we are today, I don't see that happening anytime soon. But where we are seeing is more benign usage of AI, can be highly effective in people making people more productive, people more effective. It's the same thing as when calculators came on, probably, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago, whenever they came on to the hands of an average consumer, mathematicians didn't lose their jobs, right? Um, but it's the same thing, right? We have basically a similar pivot going on in the space as well.
So I have to ask a question. This may be a selfish question that I've been asking a lot of people, but because you mentioned that there's some good that will probably happen from AI, but then there's also probably some bad that could happen as well. What is the percentage of likelihood that AI could cause a lot of harm? What do you think that threshold should be for us not to pursue certain areas of it? Meaning, if we were to ask most people in the AI community, how likely is it for AI to be destructive to mankind? Would it be 5% is an acceptable number, but if it was if they thought it was a 30% chance, then that would be terrible? Is it 10% chance? I don't know if you've ever thought about it in this way, but if you could humor me here, what percentage of it do you think is just too high where it's like, you know what, why are we even doing this in the first place?
I don't think you can stop this. The cat's out of the bag at this point. There's no way to stop this. The train has left the station. All we can do is best steer it in the right direction, which is what we are doing at Engagingly, right? We are trying to help our organizations that we work with get better at developing themselves, developing their people, things of this nature. And I can talk more about that. But to answer your question, the likelihood that AI can go rogue, it really is not the AI that'll go rogue, to be honest. Just to step back a minute. It is some rogue actor who will take control of that AI and
Mm.
and go rogue with it. That's the fear. The fear is not AI will destroy us. It's AI in the hands of the wrong person will destroy us. What are the
Okay.
likelihood of that? I would say, if you think about nuclear weapons, for example, we had a moratorium where people won't use nuclear weapons. We have the Warsaw or whatever the treaty is. I forgot now. It's not Warsaw. It's something else. So apologies for that. And the same thing on chemical weapons. We have a treaty not to use it, but still, countries like Syria used it. Nuclear weapons, thankfully, nobody has used it since World War II. But in the wrong hands, will it be used? Most likely, yes. If it gets in the hands of the wrong crowd in the world, there are bad actors who will love to get their hands on that. I think the same thing applies to AI. How
Got
do
it.
you prevent it from getting the hands of the wrong person? And I don't have the answer for that, to be honest. Right?
Got it. And that's a pretty popular belief as well that AI, similar to anything else, isn't the problem. It's that people are the problem. And if you take anything, certain people can make anything bad or do harm.
Yes, I
Makes
think
a lot
that
of sense.
the thing I wanted to emphasize here is that the you and I cannot access nuclear weapons, but you and I can access AI, right?
That's
That,
a major
that
difference.
that's a big difference. Now, if you have a hacker who could access, about a few years ago, they hacked the Target credit cards the Target had, right, and got access to all that. If the security is not strong enough, somebody could access the algorithm of the AI and recode it or reseed it with a different idea. Where, for example, the AI at Google, for example, is not supposed to answer questions about religion, for example.
Mm,
That's one of their principles.
interesting.
Uh, and AI, ChatGPT is not supposed to give you answers about, how do I go and murder this person? Give me some ideas. It won't give you that. But because it's been programmed not to answer certain questions that are destructive to humans, but that is part of a code somewhere that can be hacked potentially. And if that happens, which all you need is an internet and some smart brains and maybe a really strong, powerful computer to hack it. I don't know, but to me, the likelihood of somebody getting hands on that is higher than likelihood of somebody getting hands on a nuclear weapon.
That's interesting. Something to think about for sure. All right. So I know I took us on a tangent, but we're going to bring this back to HR because I know that's what everybody came here to listen to, even though I'm sure some people found that very interesting as well. But today we're talking about how will AI impact HR in the workforce. And so we can take this in a couple different directions, but you can let me know if you would rather start off with how AI is impacting HR today, or we can start off with how HR is impacting the employee experience. And there's a lot of overlap between the two,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
this
yeah.
is a choose your own adventure episode, so you can let me know which way you want to start.
No, no. I can just start off with how it is doing it today and how I see it in the future, right?
Awesome. Let's start there.
So what HR, unlike let's say search engines or engineering or even marketing or sales, AI has been being used a lot, right? We have companies like Gong and Chorus and conversational intelligence and all that. HR is the only area where HR really used AI for the most part was in recruitment, and to use to in theory to reduce bias and scan through thousands and thousands of resumes to find best fit and things of this nature. Now, the future of AI in HR is now, I would say, almost 100x of that potentially, because now, for example, at Engagingly, we've deployed AI in our platforms. It is optional; clients don't have to use it if they don't want to. But what it allows you to do is when you're giving, let's say, a feedback to an employee on whether what they did or didn't do well as a manager, most managers don't know how to say it correctly without saying something that is caustic, right? So AI helps them reframe that, so they can give better, more effective feedback. If somebody's setting up a goal, the AI can tell you as you're setting up your goal, are you setting up a goal that is actually effective and is actionable? So it's not a goal like I'm going to do better at sales. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, right? Better at sales means what? Are you going to do more revenue? Are you going to get better deals? Are you going to win better clients? The AI can read that and give you say, hey, this goal is not clear enough. Let's help you craft a better goal. So that's how we are seeing it, used in Engagely. But that those are very related to specifically related to talent management. For example, one of the big use cases that we are going to be deploying next month is, hey, I want to learn the skills. Help me figure out what all videos I can watch, what all training I should take, what are some of the resources I should listen to. Maybe listen to a podcast like this, for example. Um, it will scrape the internet, look at different resources. We have our own database of resources. It can suggest basically a curriculum based on all these different assets that are available internally and external to the organization. So that's how somewhere AI can really, really help, because learning managers may not have their enough bandwidth to cater to different needs for different employees for their learning needs. They can buy a huge library of skills or library of learning resources and training programs, but they don't know which one is better for which reason, for what, necessarily, because you're talking about different people, different departments, different roles. So the AI can really cut through the clutter and give them better recommendations. So those are some of the applications that are very near term. Another near term application is really around employee self service, right? So if I wanted to ask my HR, hey, I don't remember how many vacations I've taken. Can you tell me how many more days I have left? You know, they can log into their HR system and look at that data, or they can ask a chatbot, which is powered by AI, and ask a question, and the chatbot will answer you that question. Or it can answer you, hey, I don't understand, I don't remember what our maternity policy is or paternity policy is. It'll answer the question. It'll have answers because it would have scraped through your company policies and procedures and given you, and it knows how to respond to that as a human. So that reduces the bandwidth of the HR dramatically, right, in terms of what they need to do, because this is not strategic work for HR. This is tactical work. Strategic work is designing a great talent management process, designing a good performance management process, designing a good L&D process, designing a great employee experience overall. And these things actually really enhance that, because I can do that on the phone. I can do that, in the middle of the night. If I wake up and I have some questions I wanted to ask. So that's how I see where HR's journey is going in the short term, in the near term, also the long term. So I don't think it's going to replace the silly HR role. It just makes them more effective.
You just differentiated between very tactical work versus strategic work, and you commented that you see AI being really effective in replacing and or automating the tactical work. Do you see a world short term where AI should and could be used for strategic work as well, or do you think at this part of where AI lives today and its capabilities, it really should be focused on very tactical manual tasks that a person shouldn't have to do because a computer can do it?
Yeah. So in the short term, I would say tactical is the way to go, because strategic requires you to do some deep thinking with your culture that you have. It requires you to, work with your different executive sponsors. It requires you to understand the market. It requires a lot of things that are not necessarily all computable data. You know, um, but that doesn't mean AI can't do it. I'm just saying they can. It's probably not something they can do in the next year or two. I could be wrong, but I do think at some point some of the strategic work potentially could be done by AI. Right? For example, if I am a startup in, let's say, food delivery, right? And there's already companies out there doing food delivery like Grubhub, Uber Eats, Chalbus, likes of those, right? And I want to understand what is the best benefit program I should have for my drivers. And I can do a go around and want to put together this benefit package and a program. I can ask an AI to do the research for me and put together a benefit package, and it'll do that for you most likely. And if it, I don't know the answer if it does have all access to all the data, but I don't see that out of the realm of possibilities. But that is somewhat of a strategic work, right? In terms of putting together a benefit package, good employee retention approaches, and maybe look at all the data there. Now, that is that data publicly available? No, not really, but it can probably look at some research out there, some interviews of some CEOs who have done that, and come together with something right now. Today, ChatGPT cannot do that because it gives you some generic answers, but I can see that easily being done in the future.
So many HR leaders right now, and people just in general, especially when it comes to business applications, they're scared of AI. They don't understand it. It's moving so fast that it doesn't really seem to be any best practices around it, because even if you try to wrap your head around one part of what's happening, it seems like the next day or the next week there's already a new ChatGPT version out, or there's 100 different apps in your area of work focusing, I'm doing AI this and AI that. There's data leaks and a lot of security problems that have happened with people just pumping data through AI models and platforms and then data leaking. And then there are people who just don't know if they can even believe that the data or the model is even evolved and mature enough to believe the insights or the recommendations that it's giving. And so with all of that happening and so much more that I didn't even talk about and discuss, how should HR leaders be thinking about using platforms that are saying that they have some type of AI powered feature or functionality in the platform, and how do you do that with your customers?
Yeah, I think AI is only good as the data it's trained on. So a lot of the AI that people are using ChatGPT based products out there is using publicly available information for the most part, right? Or some research academic journals that may not be publicly available, but if you have a subscription, you can get data on that from that. And ChatGPT and other are trained on that data, so they can get that information. So it's going to be limited by whatever it's been fed, and it's been fed a lot, right? It's not a trivial amount. It's a lot than most humans can ever remember, or possibly any human can ever remember and distill that information. However, like the example I gave you about my company policies and procedures, that is written by that HR team, right? And I can make that part of the data set that is training data for my AI tool. Or I can put together our talent management strategy, and then during the talent management process, let's say the manager was like, I don't remember what my process was. How am I supposed to have this discussion with my employee in the performance review? If there was a document or a video created, AI can you use that, and then I can just ask my chat, okay, what was the approach I should take when I finish my review? It'll answer you. This is the process that we laid out, instead of digging through emails and things of that nature. So AI can be helpful, and it'll be very good in that sense because it is working with data you provided and very specific to your use cases. So that's where I see HR needs to adopt AI for that. Now, I will be very clear that we don't sell any PII data, personally identifiable data, and companies shouldn't do that at this point anyway, until there are better policies around that has been defined by the third-party providers of these AI technologies out there. The secrecy part is an interesting one. There was an article or a news about Samsung engineers publicly or using ChatGPT and sent out their company information out to ChatGPT, and there was a big brouhaha about it. But yes, it was a data leak, but it's not like it's publicly available. It's sitting in AI's data store somewhere, and it may or may not be easy to access that. And usually, and I don't know about usually actually, the ChatGPT, if you feed any data from your system, I think it only keeps the data for 30 days or something like that, if I remember right. So you got to be careful about what data you send that. As long as it is not, publicly sensitive information. You're not sending your, you know, your earnings report before you declare it publicly. Things like that. That would be very dangerous, obviously.
As HR leaders are thinking about how they can best adopt AI in a way that's really going to allow them to do their jobs better, how should they evaluate different platforms that are saying they have AI? Is there any way that they can check to see, one, if you really do have AI? Because I know there are certain platforms that say they have AI, but then they really don't. Does it matter if a platform builds their own AI versus leveraging some other AI platform like ChatGPT? There's so many questions here, and I'm just trying to pull out some of them that I know HR leaders are just really confused about at this time.
Yeah. So there's a whole confusion around AI, what really AI is. A lot of systems do predictive analytics, which is the next level of your normal BI analytics, and they're calling it AI, which is it's not. It's based on a preset pattern. It's predicting. Then there's the next level is machine learning, which is saying, based on this pattern, let's just give an example. Based on this pattern, I think this employee should might has a higher likelihood of leaving your organization. It's predicting that based on the data set and the patterns it's seen in the past. That's predictive algorithm. Now, you can call that AI. A lot of vendors do, but that's not AI. That's just based on a fixed model. Machine learning is saying, I'm using that pattern, but as people leave and as I see changes and they don't fit this pattern necessarily anymore, I will change my algorithm to some extent, or the pattern to some extent. Not necessarily the algorithm, but maybe the variables and the weighting of the variables in the algorithm to some extent. So then that's machine learning. It's learning as people leave. So maybe 2 years ago, a lot of people were leaving because they don't want to come into the office. Now maybe people are leaving because they're getting paid more at a different place. So it'll know the difference, and it can change the algorithm to do the predictions going forward. Now AI will take it to the next level, where it can look at multiple other behaviors, multiple different variables, and continue to refine and predict based on things that are not computable data. It could basically read your tone of the voice, for example, on a voicemail or something like that. I'm not sure if that of any value or not. I'm just giving that as an example, where it can look at different things that are not necessarily computable data in a normal mathematical sense, but it can use that to determine and predict potentially whether this person is going to leave or not. So to me, that's a completely different level, right? Where you sit across, let's say you sit across your employee and you have your one-on-one check-in, and you just have this conversation. Then 15, 20 minutes after the conversation, you realize, I don't think this person is really happy here. I feel like he's looking for a job. You just have this gut feeling, right? And there's no one thing that person said. It didn't say, I'm not getting paid enough, or I'm working too hard, or I don't really like the culture here. I don't like this person there. Maybe they didn't say any of it. You just know that from the body language, maybe some of the words they use or the collection of the words they use. You just feel it. To me, that is where if the AI can do that, it might be able to. I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. I don't know at what level of accuracy, but it could do that by maybe reading certain other parameters like that, and in the future maybe it'll detect that, so then you can intervene and help, take action. This is just an outside use case. We are not doing this use case at all. I just want to be clear for that. But I'm just spitballing on some other things that potentially AI can do. Now that's a true AI. If you do something like that, maybe you know doing an interview with a candidate, you can read that and figure out some of the behaviors that they might exhibit based on the data that you might have previously.
Sri, I could talk to you about this all day long because there's so much to cover and there's so much we just don't know about AI. But I do want to ask you one final question, and that is if there's one thing that you want HR leaders to remember when it comes to using AI or thinking about how they can get the most value and output from AI in their job and role, what would it be?
I think that what they really need to consider is it truly a bells and whistles, or is it really going to help their people succeed, right? If it is just some nice colors and some dashboards that they're getting without really adding any value from this AI or so-called AI, or maybe just something very cool, but they really need to look at, is that really going to make my managers a better manager? Is that really going to reduce my time from doing tactical work? Is that improving the quality of my work? Truly doing that because I'm doing that today, and not be sold a dream, right? I think that's what they need to really evaluate. And if they really have that situation in their organization, if they don't, for example, this example I was giving you about company policies and procedures and all of that, if they're not going to use that, they can buy it for that. But if they're not going to, they don't have a policy and procedure document that they're going to upload and feed it to the AI and do all that because of privacy concern or things like that, then there's no point buying that tool.
Sri, thank you so much for being such an awesome podcast guest. And I think probably the first podcast that we've done where we've done a deep dive into AI. So really appreciate this, and I know we're going to do a lot more episodes about this. So we'd love to have you back on as AI continues to evolve and we learn more. But thank you so much. Really appreciate you and all your wisdom here. Woo! Go Sri!
Thank you, Bruce. I really appreciate it.
So Sri, where can people find you and Engagingly online?
Well, Engagedly.com, Engagedly.com. We are a talent management platform for performance management, goal setting, employee engagement, learning and development, and coaching and mentoring as well. And they can find me, Sree Chellappa, Srikant Chellappa is my full name, on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. You'll see a lot of my other thoughts on AI, and specifically around workplace, and some of the other things I talk about with management and building leaders for the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sri, and we'll definitely include all that info in the show notes. So, for all of you out there that enjoyed this episode as much as Sri and I did making it, please leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and every other podcast platform you can. Also, if this is your very first time listening to one of our episodes and now you're hungry for more, then please subscribe to the Employee Cycle podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other major podcast platforms. And last but not least, all of you super awesome HR and people leaders out there, please continue to hire, train, and retain the best workforce possible. Thanks. Later, kids.